Good evening or good morning, wherever you are in the world. I'm Regina Yao, and I'm moderating the 6th Google Hangout session of the 4th fall edition of our Read for Pixels campaign. Through Read for Pixels, the Pixel Project is collaborating with 12 award-winning best-selling authors to raise awareness about violence against women and to raise funds towards our celebrity male role model Pixel Reveal campaign, which aims to raise 1 million for the Pixel Project to keep our efforts to end violence against women alive and kicking. We'll be telling you a little more about the Read for Pixels fundraiser, which has lots and lots and lots and lots of exclusive author goodies a little later in this session. And you can find out more about the Pixel Project and the work we do to end violence against women. And also, uh, if you have any friends or relatives who are facing violence against women, you can get some primers there, some checklists, some information so you can go help them. And you can go find out all of this at www.thepixelproject.net. And we have a very special guest today. We're having a live discussion and Q&A session with the fabulous urban fantasy and crime fiction author Vicki Pettersson. Vicki is the New York Times bestselling author of the SIGNS of the Zodiac and Celestial Blues paranormal series, and the straight psychological thriller Swerve. She has a passion for writing women who defy the odds, who refuse to be silenced or stopped, and who won't be written off. Her website is at vickipettersson.com. So Vicki has also generously donated a couple of awesome treats to the stash of author goodies we have up as perks for donors at the Read for Pixels fundraising page. They are a chance to become a minor character in one of Vicki's next books. Vicki has 2 works in progress right now, and you can pick the one that you prefer. And a 30-minute one-to-one Skype chat with Vicki about anything you wish, books, writing, geekery, or just chill out and laugh about stuff together. And Kara McLeod from Colorado, USA has snapped up the Skype chat, so thank you, Kara. And there is still an opportunity to become a minor character in Vicki's next book. And, and there's a whole bunch of other good stuff over at the fundraising page. So we'll tell you a little bit more about that a little later in the session. So you can give generously because we're at, let's see, I think we're almost at 80% to our $5,000 goal. So let's try and make it in record time this time. It's day 10 of the campaign, and if we can make it to, if someone gets the Vicki's minor character perk, we'll be definitely be headed to 5K, which is our goal. So right now, I'll just head over to Vicki, and Vicki's gonna read something a little special for us. Hey, Vicki, welcome.
Hi, Regina. Thank you. I hope you get to your goal. I have just been loving following you and Pixel Project, and I can't tell you how much I just love and support what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much. We really love having you on with us and supporting us. So there are 8 viewers. Yay! Welcome, everybody. 8 viewers.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you to Kara McLeod as well, because she's one of my friends from Facebook, and we've never met. Okay, so I say friends, but readers and friends. So I can't wait. We're gonna have fun. So I can't wait to speak to you live. So that'll be great. Thank you for supporting the project.
Yeah. So you're gonna read an excerpt from Swerve today, right? Is it Swerve?
Yes, it's Swerve. It is my most violent book, and normally I would not read the epilogue. So if anybody hasn't read Swerve and either wants to skip this part, fast forward it, in anticipation of reading it, you can do so. But the reason I've chosen to read the epilogue is because this is, where I was going with the entire book anyway. Because despite the violence in it, and despite the violence committed against this one particular woman, it's really a story of survival and strength, and that's where I was headed all along. Because, yeah, I mean, we can get to the violent issue later if you want to speak about that. I'm happy to, because it is an extremely violent book, to the point where I've had some people say, "Gosh, I can't believe a woman wrote this," and then they're like afraid to meet me. And I'm so nice. So, but I like to read this for you because I think it speaks to and for and of survivors. So
Yeah, you know what they say about horror authors, right? They write the most scary stuff, but when you meet them, they're the nicest people.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. No, I've met quite a few, and superb. Yeah. So, okay, so good company to be in for sure.
So
Um,
let's get started if you're reading.
sure. So this just occurs 1 year after all of the events, and 1 year later. Okay. So it's nearly nightfall, but there's a bit of time yet before the fireworks begin. The air is still filled only with the hum of adult conversation along the deck of Lake Arrowhead's Grand Hotel, and the lawn teems with children bopping to tunes they all seem to know, but that I've never heard. They dance in front of the DJ booth, as if thanking him for spinning, and the tween girls squeal in groups, their plastic glow stick necklaces and bracelets zigzagging in neon against this deepening night. The sounds laugh at me as I lean over the edge of the patio, a full glass of white wine beating in my hand. I had this idea of Abby standing next to me, united as we faced down the holiday on the lake where it all almost ended 1 year ago, Independence Day. I envisioned her looking up at me and marveling at the way I stare out over that cold water without flinching, maybe saying she can't believe how strong I am, so that I can be motherly and wise and remind her that the same strength lives inside of her. But it never works out the way you think, does it? Abby is preoccupied with barbecue and sticky lemonade, and a girl she just met is whispering in her ear like they've been friends for the whole of their lives. They're likely discussing their favorite apps or clothing store or school subject or something far too important to be interrupted by a lecture on the merits of being strong in the face of adversity and evil. So I just mark her position on the lawn, cataloging everyone around her too, and then turn back to face the lake alone. I'm not sure what I expected by coming back here. Now that I'm on speaking terms with all of my emotions, I'm often surprised at what pops up. I regularly startle myself and others by bursting into tears in the strangest, even benign moments. Abby's parent-teacher conference had me blubbering like a rejected reality show contestant. Commercials for fast food and insurance send me lunging for the tissue box. Sometimes the tears fall down my face and I don't even know it until I find myself rubbing the scar that still stretches red along my left leg, or unconsciously covering my reconstructed earlobe with hair from my new shoulder-length bob. I'm told it suits me. The therapist said that wildly swinging emotions are normal, that it's my mind continuing to recalibrate. She also warned that it was probably too soon to face my attacker's ghost alone. But I know what happens when you don't give closure to unresolved business, and as I look at the gaping black hole directly across the lake, everything shadowed and dark, but for the turrets spaced along the sharp roofline, I feel another tie that binds me to my dusty past loosen its stays and fall away. It's beautiful, isn't it? The question comes from a man, leaning against the other end of the railing. He smiles and lifts his wine glass my way, and I smile back while searching his face for signs of recognition. My own face was splayed across newspapers countrywide in the weeks after my attacker's rampage. And the hospital administrators finally called me into his office and suggested that it might be best for me to take some time off. I didn't blame him. The tabloid reporters loved their headlines and hounded me with loaded questions, following me all the way into hospital in efforts to bait me, trying to get photos of all my wounds. However, this man doesn't give off the shark-like air of a reporter. His face remains politely open, and he keeps a comfortable distance between us, which is fine by me. My therapist is working on that, too. You're still so young, she'd say, as if that matters more than experience. And you're still so hopeful, I'd replied, because even though she's twice my age, she's never witnessed a man flattened or crucified or buried. Clearly, the man at the other end of the railing never has either, because he seems hopeful too. Mom? Abby, I realize, has been saying my name. Yeah, baby, I blink as if coming to, the man immediately forgotten. Can I go down to the docks to watch the fireworks from there? Some of the other kids are going. My fingers tighten around my wine glass. I'd rather you stay in sight. I'd rather you stay tucked in my side, I think, in my pocket. I'd rather you climb back inside of me where my heart is supposed to live. Abby looks as though she's going to argue for a minute, then surprises me with a smile. Reaching up, she runs her thumb across my forehead, one side to the other, and smooths the frown from my brow. It's a habit she's picked up at the point in the last year when we started sleeping together in the same bed. I'll wait until I hear her breathing ease out before I go to sleep, but sometimes I'll wake in the middle of the night to find her caressing me this way, totally still and silent, but wide awake as if memorizing my features. That's how she's looking at me now. Okay, she finally says, and skips lightly away. I watch her go, and I feel so alive. That's what I'm thinking when I turn away, smiling, and catch sight of him. It's not much to go on, just the flash of a dark head and a pair of wide shoulders disappearing around a myrtle hedge, but it's enough to make me startle. There's nothing new. My breath regularly catches in my throat. I have to relearn how to breathe dozens of times in any given 24 hours. So I don't trust the bump in my chest, but given the environment, given that they never found his body, I'm following the man before I know it, cutting through the buffet line on the lawn, chasing a ghost down the zigzag path I've just forbidden Abby to traverse. All the while, I'm thinking, it can't be. I push past a couple strolling hand in hand, my throat tight with the leaden ball of real panic. The stone-walled path forks in two directions near the lake's edge, and I have a decision to make. Head up to the pool, where guests are lounging with their faces turned to the sky, or down into the darkness of the water and docks. I make my choice and dodge children that glow with green and yellow and orange neon, and skirt a couple engaged in a hard embrace next to one final hedge. I round the corner and stumble when I come eye level with the boats glowing on the lake. The flashback hits me square. A sprint toward a dock just opposite this one, a frenzied row before the crash, a blade in the lake. I suddenly feel watched as I stumble toward the hotel's lone dock. The gate is shuttered on it, and a sign hanging on a chain marks it as off limits, but it isn't secured. In fact, it's ajar, half an inch, though there's no one and nothing moving along the long, flat dock. The lake's center is identical to the way it was the year before, cool water and light waves rocking stilled boats, a center dock with hot fireworks and police strobes. Pockets of black sit up along the opposite shoreline, perfect for burying secrets. Yet try as I might, I can't sense him here. He's gone, and I think I should go too, back up to the balcony to watch the rest of the show with Abby and everyone else who has come here to celebrate. I don't move, though, and I'm not sure why until the first firework sears the air with a piercing whistle. It breaks into an explosion that colors the lake in violent red. Off-field sighs float down from the hotel patio, but I don't look up like everyone else. Instead, I keep my gaze trained on the onyx pocket directly across from me, where a giant mausoleum lays buried in an encroaching forest. Are you watching me? I ask, in between aerial concussions. At first, I'm just talking to him, but then I realize I'm really speaking to all of them, my father and mother both, Wayland Rhodes, all buried deep. I hope so, I tell them without blinking, because I'm going to climb on top of all the things you people tried to do to me, and I'm going to use them to get everything I want. That, I think, turning back around, is evolution. Then I head back up the path to the hotel, under the umbrella of beautiful violence. I climb up and up, out of the darkness. I go forward to my daughter and to my life, and this time, I'm the one who doesn't look back.
Yay, thank you. That's awesome. Now, before we move on to the discussion session, I'll just put myself on the screen because there are now like 11 or 12 viewers. So let's just let everyone know. Hi, everybody. If you just joined us, I'm Regina Yao. I'm today's interviewer. If you are watching this, you will notice that there's like a live chat box on the right of the screen, to the right of the screen. You can type in your questions there. Samantha, who's today's chat box moderator, will relay your questions to me, and I will ask them. I will read them out to Vicki to answer, and we will do this in between the discussion session. So let's move back to Vicki. So let's get started with today's discussion. So in your author bio, you've stated, though I write both paranormal and straight thrillers, the tie that binds my work together is my insistence and love for strong female characters. And with 10 novels behind me, I can now look back and clearly see my passion. No, my obsession is writing about what it means to be a woman in this man's world. And your female protagonists, such as Joanna Archer, Kit Craig, and Christine Rush, are fantastic female characters who are intelligent, resourceful, and tough-minded in the face of, let's face it, they're tough-minded as they face really horrible odds. So first question is, who or what inspired you to create your female characters? Are they based on anybody or a composite or?
They're often composites. I will tell you that in Swerve, my thriller was actually based, I mean, the physical description and the strength, the internal strength at least, that she has is derived from a real life friend. She was never chased down by a serial killer, as Christine is in the book. So I basically took my friend, I put her in this horrible situation. So I apologized to her profusely, and her mother reads my books and she's okay with it. I don't know, maybe we had an argument that day. But she has a severely autistic son, and I've watched her, worked with her for a decade and watched her throughout the years dealing with this, to the point, where he's larger than her now. He's in his 20s and he's severely autistic. It's not going to get any better. So I watched this go from age 4 all the way till he aged out of the system. And I've never seen any woman with such strength in my entire life. And if I could be a quarter of the woman that she is, and have a quarter of her strength, it would be enough to get through anything. I mean, she's tremendous. And so it's so weird to say that I wrote a book as a love letter to her, especially when it's so violent, but if you've just, stayed with me and we're listening through that last chapter, I just truly believe that, the good wins over evil, and that how we go through the journey, marks us, the things that we go through, but God, she's such a phenomenally good person. Every trial she goes through, she ends up being, I don't know, better than all of us. In fact, with this particular friend, everybody goes to her with their problems. It's so strange, and she has, a lot larger problems than any of us, or even all of us put together. So that, yes, that was my girlfriend. With Joanna Archer, who was my first series character, she is physically strong, and I gave her, she was a superhero, and I gave her those physical strengths because I wanted the physical issue not to be an issue. So she can compete with a man physically because it's supernatural in nature. But at the time that I wrote it, I was very physical in that way, and I had studied and taken Krav Maga and Western style boxing and Muay Thai, and I was just a very physical person. I still am in different ways, but I've always rubbed. It's always rubbed me wrong, to say that I can't, or to hear that I can't do something because I'm a girl, or I'm not a man. I can do what I want, when I want, how I want. It's not like I can go up against a man of my size and win, but knowing your limitations is sometimes your greatest strength. So I show that through my fiction too. And then Kit Craig, who was my trilogy with Celestial Blues, she is a normal person thrown into a supernatural situation, and she just has to use her mind. So there are a million different ways that women are strong, and they can get in and out of situations. And I like to explore that, and because this is the world we live in. So how do you navigate it? How do you, as a woman, how do you teach, your loved ones and your daughters, and, to do so in the future? And it's a concern that it will always, be a concern for me. It'll always be an obsession for me.
Okay, so the second question coming up. Like any other genre, the crime and fantasy genres have many well-trodden female stereotypes and tropes. How do you work around or subvert such stereotypes to create female characters who have agency in dealing with the world around them, including situations that involve sexism, misogyny, and violence against women?
Well, it's tropes are tropes for a reason. So I think they're easily identified by a writer and a reader. But I don't create characters. I try to create people. Obviously, I know that they're not real people. Even Christine Rush, who resembles my girlfriend, I know that this character isn't real, but they become so real to me in my life. And often what I do is I say, what would I do if I were this person in this situation? What would I do if I were a superhero with a chip on my shoulder, in this given situation? and by putting myself in their shoes. And this is how we communicate, isn't it? This is how we break bread with anybody else, you know, no matter who they are. You put yourself in their position, in their situation. And so that's just what I do with my characters. And then the result is that they become so real to me that they can't act any other way. Joanna Archer can't act any other way but being, you know, vigilant and strong and a little bit pissed off, because she is. That's the world she lives in. Kit Craig uses her mind and her savvy, and, you know, figures out when a situation is too dangerous for her and when it's not. And then Christine Rush, you know, was super resourceful in, running for her life, you know, and figuring it out with her back very firmly up against the wall. So I just have to put myself in those situations and imagine them wholly.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, the term strong female character, I'm putting this in open and close inverted commas, a lot of authors don't like that, because it in itself is kind of like a stereotype, like, oh yeah, we just have to stick a strong female character in there, but there are many different kinds of strengths, right? Like the way you described. What's your take on the whole discussion about strong female characters, open and close commas?
All 10 books, you know, that I've written thus far have had, I mean, it did, what is, because I'm going to write somebody weak, like, why would you even do that? So I don't, that alone is a trope. I just ignore it. It doesn't interest me. It's quite boring now to hear. So when I talk about books and I talk about these women and these characters, I just talk about their, you know, what makes them strong, their attributes. Yeah, it's not a one-size-fits-all, for sure.
Yeah, you know, with Joanna Archer in particular, you deal with the aftermath of rape and its effects on the survivor. So Joanna clearly has PTSD, and she's coping with it with a lot of strength and resourcefulness. She's working through it. She worked through her anger. She came out on the other side. And, you know, you've done an excellent job of showing the pain and trauma while taking us on Joanna's personal journey of growth. So now there has been a lot of discussion in writing communities and geek communities about avoiding the gratuitous use of the rape trope. How did you avoid, you know, for example, they say it's lazy because some authors just use it to highlight what they call man pain. So, you know, the male character has maybe a mom or a sister or a female friend or a wife, and she gets raped, and so then we go on his journey. So right. They say that is a really lazy way of using it. So how did you avoid all the pitfalls of this trope? And what would you suggest to authors who wish to include female characters who have experienced gender-based violence, you know, either rape, sexual assault, domestic violence, any form of gender-based violence? I mean, what would you suggest to authors who want to try their hand at that?
Yeah, well, I mean, this was a decade ago that I wrote this, and I probably wouldn't try it again today, or maybe I would. Again, I didn't show the violence on the page. I showed the aftermath, and what you mentioned before was precisely what I was after. I was after showing her growth. Her growth as a person and a survivor, and getting away from that anger, because the anger is certainly a part of it, but at some point, it's not that you have to let it go. It's almost, I think I can liken it to when somebody close to you dies. And so my father passed a couple of years ago, and I haven't gotten used to it, or sorry, it hasn't gotten any better. I've just gotten used to it, you know, like I have a place for that, and I can now deal with it. But it's like that. If you hold on to it forever, you're going to hold yourself back, and all of a sudden that person who tried to make you a victim is, you know, influencing your life in a way that you're allowing. So it's one thing for somebody to take the opportunity to try and make, you know, to commit a gender-based crime and try and make you a victim, but you don't have to live there. And so that's what I wanted to show with her. And I think, you know, the pitfall then would be for anybody to try and create a woman who does, you know, it is there solely for, you know, the man's journey. So if an author is, you know, doing that, well, and now, you know, I mean, the woman died, and so now he must go get revenge. I mean, it's so boring. I'm just not interested in those stories, and I don't really know anybody who is. So I don't write them. I think that's probably why, you know, you get that strong female character trope, because she's just, it's not a man's story. You know, but no woman is living a man's story. I'm married, but I'm not living my husband's story. I'm living my own, and that is, you know, that's equality. So it doesn't exist in my life, and it doesn't exist in my fiction. And so, yeah, that's pretty much my answer to that.
Yeah. Now let's move forward to some fan questions before we resume the discussion. So there's a mix of questions here from Facebook. You've had some fans leave you questions in advance, and the questions are rolling in the chat box as well. So I'll just go alternate. So just directly leading on from the discussion about the Zodiac series about Joanna, Joy Radici Bannister says, will you be returning to the Zodiac series world at all?
Yes.
Yes, we're going to discuss that a little later in this session, right? So, yes.
Yeah, I have a cute little banner right now, and we can talk about that more in a little bit. But the short answer is yes. So, yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, Jamie Reveletti asks, hi Jamie, thanks for joining us today. I know you're watching this. Jamie asks, when did you start writing?
Oh, okay. So I started writing in earnest. First, hi Jamie. She's a fantastic author of like these amazing female-driven books as well. So you got to read her if you haven't already. So 26 is the easy answer. I've been a reader, and then I really did decide one day that I was going to write a book. And this is just how I do things. I'm going to write a book today, and I didn't write it all in one day, but I did start writing that day, and I didn't stop. So I get super obsessive and super like just tunnel vision with whatever I'm into at the moment, and then this just never left. That's not true. It did leave. It did leave. I went through a period over the last couple of years where I didn't want to be a writer anymore, so I just didn't. But now I do again. So
do you have a lot of writers talk about, oh, we have when we started writing, we have all these things that we wrote that will never ever see the light of day. Do you have any of those?
Oh my gosh, I have this book. It's a historical fiction, 9th century Anglo-Saxon England and pagan Scandinavia. Like, it's so not publishable. It's so sad. I mean, it's about Vikings, really. It's Vikings, but just not very. It was like when nobody bathed, and it was gross, and it wasn't sexy, and like nobody really knows what was going on in the 9th century anyway. So yeah, but it was my Diana Gabaldon phase before everyone else got into Diana Gabaldon and the Outlander series, and I had belonged to this writers forum way back on CompuServe Books and Writers, and Diana was there at the time, and she made herself available to other writers. It was amazing how open and available and accessible she was, and you could just ask her questions, say, hey, how do you do this? And it wasn't by asking her questions that I learned how a writer works. It was by watching her. So other people would be talking about writing, and they'd, ad nauseum, and they'd be on the forum all day. Hello, internet. Now everybody does that, right? But she would just do it. And so I was like, well, that's the most successful writer here, so I'm just going to do what she does. And so I did. I just shut up and started writing. So
So next question, Leah Dillo asks, where do you find inspiration for your plot lines?
Oh gosh, the common answer is everywhere, and that's true. Most authors say that, everywhere. I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to have like one idea. I think you need to have at least three ideas melding together, and in order to have a story that's worth it, anything at all. 2 books have come to me in dreams now. Is my first book for Scent of Shadows. I saw this, which is the original Zodiac series. I saw this girl holding a stiletto against this big guy, and he's all in leather, and she was like, oh God, this is my good shoe. And she picked up a different one. She's like, okay, now. So she was defend herself with this. Anyway, But I was curious. I was like, that's silly. So what's going on there? And then it ended up being, you know, not Joanna, but her sister in that scene. But so that sparked a whole series. Hi, see, so don't ever just, you know, dismiss your ideas as silly. And then just recently, over this past spring, I dreamed about this woman standing in the face of this alley with a dog next to her. And I was like, what is in that alley? And why is she, I don't have a dog. I'd like a dog, but I don't have a dog. What is she doing there? And so that's the proposal I'm working on now. So that's, and I love it. Like I know this idea is going to work. I just know it because I've done this 10 times. And so, well, 11 times. So yeah, this is, I'm super excited about it. So.
Yeah, okay. Jen McKenzie Q. Hi, Jen. Jen is watching us right now. She says, how and where do you find the bizarre locations and elements for your books? I'm thinking Rockahula and Crocodile, for example.
Okay. Research. Yeah. So the Rockahula Water Park in Swerve, I took a road trip. In fact, I took numerous road trips because Swerve is set in between Las Vegas and you know, Lake Arrowhead in California. So there's a stretch of road here, the I-15, which is really literally the most boring place in the world. Like, and then if you do it in the summer, in the Mojave, in the desert heat, you're looking at 110, 115, sometimes 120, you know, degree heat at the same time of this boring flat drive. And and actually, I used to play this game with my passenger, which was Baker or Death, because there's this town named Baker in this stretch of highway, and it's awful. It's a terrible. I'm sorry for anybody who lives in Baker that I'm saying this, but I'm also sorry for anybody who lives in Baker, because Baker or Death was just it. Would you live in Baker or would you just choose to die? And we pretty much chose death every time. Like, it was just. And so that's kind of what inspired Swerve, because I was like, what could make this drive worse? Because I was doing it alone one time. I thought, oh, only being chased by a serial killer. Ding! So, so I had to research it. And so I went to those places. And I actually went to the Rockahula with my husband. And we got out there, and even he was spooked. And it's so weird because he's like, you know, 6 foot alpha, you know. And I was like, see, now you know what it's like to be scared, because we were spooked. It was a spooky place. So that, and then the crocodile, she's discussing the drug. I researched that. It was in Celestial Blues. And yeah, I mean, sometimes truth is stranger than fiction and grosser too. So yeah, all around.
Related to that, Natalie Connor Higginson asks, you created such vivid images with Swerve. How did you come up with such great horror descriptions? And did you lose sleep like I did while me reading and you writing? You scare yourself? Because you know Paul Tremblay, who wrote A Head Full of Ghosts, he just completed a new manuscript, and so on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, he actually put a Facebook update. He said, I'm writing this really creepy scene, and there was a crash downstairs, and there's nobody there, so he scared himself. Do you ever get that? I mean, when you write?
Well, fortunately, I haven't
the horror descriptions, do they, like Natalie says, how do you come up with it, and do you scare? And I'm going to add this, do you actually scare yourself when you write them?
I don't scare myself because I'm so concerned with the technical aspect of writing it. Like, it's I'm so concerned with trying to scare the reader. Like, what's the best way to, you know, crush them? And so, so no, I don't get scared. I'm very, you know, yeah, working very hard. So thank you, Natalie, for being scared.
That's just a little bit evil.
I know.
How can you crush them? That's
well,
just a little bit evil. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So there's one more question about Swerve, and it's from our intrepid and lovely donor, Kara McLeod. And Kara says, my question is this. I'm almost afraid to ask, yet I'm deeply curious. What did you edit out of Swerve?
Oh gosh, I can't remember. A lot. Like I write way, way, way more than I need. Well, I will tell you that originally I had written the whole book in dual point of view, back and forth, and then the feedback I got on it that was that by showing the male perspective and you know, the antagonist perspective, that it was undercutting the tension. And so I ripped it all out and I rewrote it through just her perspective, and it was actually a gazillion times, you know, scarier. So, but that's just technical. I can't quite remember any of the horrific things that I edited out. I pretty much like went there. Now looking back, I'm not sure I would write it as violently. There's a couple scenes in there I'm like, and my husband was like, what? And then everybody who reads it, they ask him if he sleeps with his eyes open, and so he now has, you know, a reputation, and it's just sad for everybody. So.
So, when your husband read it, did he sleep with the lights on afterwards?
What is wrong with you? I'm like, but were you scared? He's like, duh. Well, see, and let's talk about the violence for a minute, since that's, you know, built into the question. I saw Dean Koontz doing this stuff, and nobody said, oh, it's too violent, it's too, and I was like, well, who knows more about violence, Dean Koontz or a chick? Like, we have to walk around in this world all the time. Every time I walk out that door, I'm looking around, you know, and this is how we move throughout the world, isn't it? So I'm not, I mean, people shouldn't be as surprised that a woman wrote a book like this, because we can imagine it, because we've, you know, not necessarily been there. I mean, God forbid. But the potential is always there, and you always have to be on lookout. I have to go, you know, if I'm going to a bar, I have to make sure it's, you know, the drink doesn't get roofied. Or if I'm walking in a parking garage here in Vegas, I have to make sure that I'm not, you know, alone, or it's late at night, or, you know, we're aware of these issues, right? So that's where it comes from just taking that kernel and then, you know, going with it. But, you know, I'd seen this written, and then the technical challenge was, how fast can I get the reader to turn the page? You know, that's really what I wanted to do. I wanted this to be a one sitting book. So that was the challenge with, you know, my soul thriller. And so I feel like I accomplished that. I love the book. I feel like it's the best thing I've ever written.
Yeah, and you're right, because, you know, 100, we could say that every girl and woman has experienced street harassment. You know, you walk out the door and you're minding your own business, and some guy just shouts something that I'm not going to repeat on this because this is family friendly. And there's one in, you know, and I think the latest statistics are, you know, one in worldwide, on average, 1 in 5 women and girls have been raped or received a rape, or has been a victim of an attempted rape. 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced some form of gender-based violence, and the UN Women has estimated it's even more than that. Probably, if you take everything into account, it's something like 70% of women and girls. That's, you know, and people ask how women writers can write horror.
Yeah.
Just like you said, you know, just take it from everyday experience. Step out the door. We know. In fact, with domestic violence, you don't even need to step out the door to experience it. So,
yeah, that's right. And it doesn't even, you know, rape is one thing. You mentioned the street harassment. I was in 3rd grade the first time a man exposed himself to me. And 3rd grade, I'm walking to school, and, you know, this was back in the day when parents didn't care about their children as much, so they let them walk miles to school. But but walking to school, and it was literally the dirty old man in the car, right? And of course I'm shocked. I don't even know what he's doing. I don't even know what that thing is. I don't know what is going on. All I know is, like, that's kind of the creepiest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, the reaction really wasn't what I was going for, because, like, pointing and laughing is probably not really what he was looking for. But I did learn, when it can't happen again the 2nd time, and when it happened again the 3rd time, to write down the license plate and take it to the principal. Like, this is how women in our society become strong. We have to do it through, you know, being harassed. I mean, that's wrong. I mean, there's got to be a better way. How about men step up and, like, don't let it happen, or how, you know, don't do it. So when people say that catcalling is innocent and oh, you should consider it a compliment, it's not a compliment because every single day it's that and more. Or, you know, when I was in college and I was in the library late one night and there's somebody who exposed himself there, you know, I'm alone down in the basement of the library. And so every single woman has these stories like this, like this, like this, like this. I could reel them off. And, you know, you don't have to be a victim of rape to know that this is not a safe place. And why are we still here? Why is this not a safe place? You know, women aren't going anywhere. We live in this world. We occupy this space. So why is this not yet safe? Where, you know, I have great men around me who use their physical bodies to protect me whenever they can, but that they shouldn't have to. Like, I shouldn't have to be protected by somebody else. This should be my space, period. So, oh my gosh, you're getting me all worked up, Regina.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is the whole point of this, right? I mean, not getting you worked up, but we're talking about violence against women. That's what the Pixel Project is working to end. And you know, you're right. You know, when I got to my teenage years, my mom was like, always carry a big umbrella or a big bag, heavy bag. You know, as women with these big tote bags, tote-sized bags with everything in it, and all the better to go whack somebody if he tries to expose himself to you or molest you in public. And in Nepal, you know, there was a report in the BBC where women have taken to carrying around big safety pins. So when they're on public transport and someone tries to grope them, they can just like stick him with the pin. We shouldn't have to do that. We should be, we should be
on the woman. That's right. It puts the onus on the woman for their bad behavior. Why am I responsible for somebody else's bad behavior? You know, this is my space. Get your hands off of me. And that's the end of the discussion. I almost said the word you didn't want me to say. I'm working so hard not to curse you guys, but now Regina's got me worked up. So if it happens, it's her fault.
Okay, so let's go back to the next part of the discussion, and then after that we can have more fan questions. So guys, please leave Vicki's gonna be here. We're gonna be here for, I don't know, another 45 minutes chatting about this. Just stick your questions in, all the burning questions you ever wanted to ask Vicki. We'll try to cover all of them in between the discussion. So let's get to part 2 of the discussion. So Joe Hill, who was our very first Read for Pixels author and a horror author in his own right, said that authors need to tell the right stories in order to help smash gender stereotypes and encourage gender equality and female empowerment. So in your opinion, how can authors strike a balance in their storytelling between raising awareness about sexism and violence against women and telling an engaging story without being pedantic or preachy? How do you strike the balance?
Yeah, well, pedantic and preachy don't work, period. I always just try and tell a story and get the audience on the side of the character, because that's when getting somebody to step into their shoes is how you can connect. It doesn't work in real life and it doesn't work in fiction. If I go up to some guy and I get in his face and I'm pointing my finger and you're sexist and you're awful and you're all of these things, is he going to start listening all of a sudden? Like, is that going to work? Is it effective? It does no good. What works is trying to find the similarities, between all of us. Race, color, sex, we are all people. At the end of the day, we have to get along, and we're more connected than ever in this society. And sometimes you can go online and you can think, God, the world is worse than ever, but it's just that you're seeing, more of these things. And on the other side of that discomfort, and on the other side of that pain, and on the other side of all of that, almost shock that these things exist in the world, is, you get past that and you can say, all right, now we got to fix this. And the only way to do it is together. And so, that's the silver lining that I choose to find and to look at and to, write about and to think about. It's the way I get through my day and my life and my work.
Yeah. So, talking about balance, right? So your stories are thrillers at their heart. You know, they're thrillers, and that means, like, as we were talking about Swerve previously, they feature some sort of violence and often violence against women. How do you find a balance between showing violence as an integral part of the story and not showing it gratuitously? Because, you know, like with Game of Thrones, for example, the critique from a lot of people are that a lot of it is really gratuitous. You know, you don't really need all that violence against women. So how do you balance that in your stories? Because you do. How do you make it non-gratuitous?
Gosh, I mean, that's a hard one to answer because I think I would have an easier time answering it all the way up until Swerve, but because Swerve is so violent, it's extremely violent, but I don't feel like I was gratuitous about it, any of it. You're talking, the antagonist is a psychopath, he's a serial killer, he's supremely disturbed. You were never, ever going to get through to this person, and you know, there are people like that out there. So what is he going to do? You know, is he going to give you a little pat on your head and say, well, I'm sorry, I'm going to kill you now, and then make it easy? It doesn't, that doesn't read. So I went there with that book because that's where he would go. So I guess I would say the best answer is you tie the violence into the characters and their motivation, but you better show it. You better show that he's the type of person who would go that far, you know, and that if you're going to put it on the page.
Yeah, and how do you think authors can tackle the issue of violence against women in stories without falling back on harmful stereotypes and tropes? I know we touched on this a little bit before, but do you have any tips for anyone who wants to walk that fine line? Because these stories are difficult, but they need to be told, right? So how do they not sort of step into stereotypes and tropes?
Well, if you're going to show somebody who's been victimized or the result of some sort of violence or crime or gender-based violence, then you have to show the journey. You know, I mean, if you're going to show the violence, you certainly need to show the aftermath. The section that I read, the epilogue in Swerve, was super important to me because it shows all those things. She's not, okay, well, and now he's dead, and yay, I'm living a happy life. No, she's going to therapy. She has swinging emotions. She can't sleep. She's worried about her child, you know, and like all of these things are still with her, but she's not going to let it rule her life. And so showing the character's agency as she continues on her journey, even if you know, you end the story with saying, you know, and then she, not necessarily, this almost contradicts what I said, but and then she lives happily ever after. Like, figure it out, you know, give the audience a way to follow that, you know, tie it up, because life is not, you can't tie, you know, a little bow on life, but in your fiction, you should be able to, you know, people want closure, they want answers, and you need to give it to them. That's your job.
Yeah. So, you know, last question for this section, then we'll go over to fan questions again. Earlier, when we chatted to authors such as Ken Liu and Kristen Britton, both of them talked about characters as role models for the reader. And so, do you think it's important for influential authors such as yourself to make a conscious effort to include characters in your stories that show readers the importance of respecting women as equals and as human beings? Now, it is a split. I'll just preface this before you answer. This is split. Some authors say, no, just tell the story. Other authors say it is important that you have to try and show people a better world. Which camp do you fall into?
Well, I suppose it would depend on the story. And again, oh my gosh, the characters. I think I keep going back to that. You know, characters, like people, are going to, you know, some people are going to be respectful and some people aren't. I choose not to hang out with the disrespectful people. They just don't even exist in my world and life, at least as much as possible. And so, but as far as fiction, and you said role models, like Joanna Archer, I don't know that she's a role model necessarily for anyone, because she's, you know, she does some things that I said to my editor once, I was like, hey, you know, if you were her in this situation, would you do this? And she was like, no, I'm not that violent. And I was like, oh my God, that's right. That's just her. So I don't know that I would necessarily prescribe it. I do know sometimes that I feel like, you know, feel like acting as she would. So I think it's more important just to acknowledge that you have all of those, you know, emotions and options, and, you know, and then still choose to do good. I still believe in good people, men and women. And then, you know, I believe in bad too. But again, we can overcome that together. You know, I don't want this. I mean, I never want my feminism to feel like I'm bashing men, because I have amazing male readers, and I have, you know, amazing men in my life. And so I think what we need to do is have an inclusive feminism. My husband is a self-prescribed feminist, and so it needs to be inclusive. And again, you know, back to we're stronger together. I don't want to be, you know, living separately from our other gender. You know, again, nobody's going anywhere. We got to walk this world together. So let's do it. You know.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the Pixel Project, I mean, that's why we have our motto, right? It's time to stop violence against women together, because we can't stop the violence when we don't have the other half of the population on board. So we have to work together. Men and women have to work together to stop the violence, because it involves major cultural change and social change, and the change of mindsets and attitudes. And we can't just change, you know, we can't just clap with one hand. We have to clap with both hands. Everybody, regardless, has to work on it. So let's go to fan questions. So I will be mixing. It'll be a mix between the Facebook questions and the live questions today. And welcome to everyone who's just joined us. We've got even more people joining us now. Everyone's sitting here listening to you, Vicki. Okay, so let's see. What's the next one? Oh yeah, Mickey Quick says, question for Vicki. With your writing routine, do you still wake up at 4 a.m. to write? Has your routine changed over the years? 4 a.m.? You wake up at 4 a.m.?
I used to, because I had a baby. So I had to get up, yeah, before the baby, and like, oh gosh, that was hell. So not 4 a.m., 5. I get up at 5, but I don't start writing immediately, even though I tell myself in my head, hey, I'm gonna get up and start writing. I don't. I actually now use the beginning of the day. It's my favorite part of the day. So clearly I'm a morning person. I have my, you know, morning routine, and setting the coffee and washing my face and everything, lighting a candle, whatever it is, from about 5 to 5:30, and then I'm settled, and then I'll sit there for a good hour and a half, and I'll prime myself for the day. I'll write in my journal. I do a lot of journal work, and actually book ideas come to me when I'm writing my journal, or if I've, you know, dreamed something in the night, I'll write that in the journal, or if there's just a snippet of dialogue, I'll write in the journal. So the mornings are really for like daydreaming. And then I plan out my day, you know, the school schedule, and, you know, working out, and then, you know, when I'm going to work during that day. And then during the late morning and afternoon hours is when I work. So, and then I stop. So I've found balance over the past, you know, few years, and I stop at 3 o'clock, and I don't look at work. I don't think about it. I don't look at my computer, social media, anything after 3 o'clock. That's dedicated to family and activities, and burning food, cooking. I would have said cooking first, but mostly it's just burning food. I still can't get that right. And let me tell you something else. So my readers know that I can't cook. And so there's a reason for this. And I want to defend myself when I have the opportunity here, because it is a feminist issue. When I was little, my mother did everything. She worked, she went to school, she drove us to all of our activities, she cooked dinner, she did everything. And then I would see my dad, and he would come home, and he'd walk in the house, and he'd lay down on the sofa, and then like she would bring him food. I was like, I saw all the work she did, and I didn't see his work at work, but I did see him not cooking. Or else he'd go, you know, she'd say, can you help me with the dishes? And he would go and, you know, well, where does this go? And I don't know where this goes, and I don't know how to, and finally it was just easier for her to do herself. And I saw this, and I said, that's BS, and I'm not gonna live that life. And I don't live that life because as a consequence, I can't cook at all. And now I have people to keep alive. Like I actually have a family to feed, and it's really, you know, if I'm working at home, it just makes sense that I get dinner started. And so I do, and it just doesn't end well. So my husband and I, we have a system now where he takes, when, you know, he takes care of the fire part and I chop. I'm like a sous chef, and then I make it pretty too because I can do that. I like to make the flowers and like I can do that. But the fire is not, I'm not, yeah.
Okay. So next question, let's see. So Rainy Rodriguez says, how do you decide exactly where to begin your story in a long-running series?
The short answer to that is as late as possible. You want to start as close to the central action as possible. And so the longer answer is my beginnings are never my true beginnings. I rewrite my beginnings, you know, wholly 5 different times before I find, you know, where I'm supposed to start. And then I'll hand it over to an editor or a reader, and they'll be like, this is boring, and I'll have to cut that too. And so I really don't know where to start. I just keep digging and chipping away at the story until the beginning reveals itself. But I spend more time on the beginnings than I do the rest of the book. So, but as late as possible, as, you know, as close to the central action as possible is my answer.
Okay, next question. Can you, from Thomas Lake, can you talk about your thought processes when planning out your next book and the research you put into it?
Does he mean in a series?
No, he just said your next book, when planning out your next book. Yeah.
They haunt me for about 2 years, a year to 2 years before I begin writing a novel. The books haunt me. They're there in the back of my mind, and I want to write them instead of what I'm actually working on, and I can't. So I'll just put ideas and thoughts and snippets and dialogue into a folder, and then I'll save it all until later. And then when it's time, I pull all that out and like aggregate the information and try and, you know, create a story. But they, you know, it's like daydreaming, really. I just daydream constantly, and I'll miss, you know, I'll burn things, or else I'll miss, you know, turn-offs when I'm driving, and I'll have to like do a U-turn, or else I'll just drop off in the middle of a conversation, and my husband's like, hello, you were actually, you know, you need to finish that sentence. So yeah, I'm constantly daydreaming. Yeah.
Okay, so Vicky Rose from the chat box, live chat box says, question for Vicky, how do you pick the people you approach when you are doing your research?
Okay, so obviously I try and find somebody who's an expert in their field, and I always go for, you know, the highest and best and the most well-known, or, you know, the most accessible or successful person. And if they say no, then I, you know, move on down the list. But people are really open to talking to you. You know, I just say, you know, I'm an author, and now that I've had books published, it's, you know, it's a lot easier, because I can say, yeah, you know, you're published, you can go pick them up in the bookstore, and, you know, I would just like to ask you some questions about your job or about your life or your lifestyle. For instance, for my Celestial Blues trilogy, I got to interview rockabilly, people who live the rockabilly lifestyle. So I interviewed this woman who, in the daytime, she was, you know, she's a nurse, and then, you know, the rest of her life, I almost said her real life, but she's a nurse in her real life, but the rest of her life, she lives as if, you know, she's in the 50s. And so this was fascinating. And so I just find subjects and people I'm fascinated by, and, you know, that fit the story. And then I bought her coffee, and I thanked her for her time, and I gave her, you know, acknowledgments in the books, and I gave her free books. And, you know, I just, you know, you ask, and people enjoy talking about their jobs and themselves, as long as you're truly interested. So, and I'm truly interested, and I like people, so.
Okay, one last fan question for this section, then we'll move on to the next discussion block. Carrie Hanscom asks, what do you feel is most influential to your writing? How do you handle slumps and writer's block?
Those are like 2 different questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most influential in my writing?
Yeah, and how you handle slumps and writer's block.
I don't know about the influential question. I suppose I just see, you know, again, I just see I mean, every single day I come up with story ideas. So I'm just curious. I think being naturally curious about the world is influential. And then obviously friends and snippets of conversation I steal and, you know, riff off of constantly. But how do I handle writer's block? I never had writer's block up until a couple years ago, and it wasn't necessarily writer's block. It was just writer's loathing. Like I didn't want to do it anymore. I pretty much hated it. And I found myself writing and sitting down, facing the page, and my husband would come home at the end of the day, and I would look up at him and I'd say, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this. And I thought, that is no way to live, and I'm not going to do it anymore. So I didn't. I quit for a couple of years, and I really kind of rearranged my whole life. I took a look at every single aspect of my life, including the writing, and I got rid of everything. Literally got rid of everything. My house was actually empty at one point. I was on my lawn furniture for about 6 months, so that's another story, but that was just me going a little bit crazy. But I got rid of everything, and then I was very careful about what I let back in. And I did obviously allow writing back in, but it was with great consideration. I mean, I considered doing other things because I got to a place where I was okay with not being a writer, and it was not the central part of my identity anymore, and it still isn't. It's now, you know, a part of me and what I do, and I have I am not holding on to it with fists, you know. I have a loose grip on it, and I'm really enjoying it. So, yeah.
So let's move to the next block, because we've probably got another half an hour more to go, so we have to get through all the questions. So here we go with the next block. Now we have some questions about YA, and the next discussion block is on young adult genres. So let's get started on that, so we can also answer the fan questions about teenage reading. There's been an influx of capable female characters in young adult genres, and what some folks on Tumblr have been calling the Hermione effect. So what are your thoughts? So the first set of questions, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is a trend or a bellwether of slow but permanent change, or do you think that the characters have always been there?
Oh, I mean, yes, I think the characters have always been there. However, I heard a statistic the other day. I was watching a documentary, like she's pretty when she's mad or beautiful when she's angry, or something like that. But back in the up until 1970, I think only 6% of books were written by women, and so that had to change before we could get these voices where you saw women as a full as an entity unto herself and as a fully realized person and character. And so, I mean, it did. And then, yeah, there's been an absolute explosion since, you know, Harry Potter and Hunger Games and YA. Here's the thing about YA. These readers are smart, passionate, driven. They are woke. Like, you're not going to get anybody more woke than a teen girl. And they are, you know, for the most part, girls. And so they're, you know, like us, looking at the world going, excuse me, what is going on here? Like, where's our equality? Like, this was supposed to be a settled matter, you know, decades ago, and they're not having it. And so the reading and the characters and the writing all reflect that. So these are smart, savvy readers, and so that's what I believe is going on there.
Okay, so I'm going to merge the next question of mine with a fan question, because that will answer the fan question as well. So you yourself will be launching a serialized YA novel on Wattpad very soon. Now Wattpad is like the writer's Tumblr. There are plenty of teens and young people sharing their stories on that platform. And I'm going to merge in this question from, let's see, A from NYC. So A asks, have you considered writing anything for my age group 12 to 16 years? I think that answers the question. You're writing a serialized YA novel. Can you tell us about this novel and why you've decided to publish it on Wattpad for free instead of as a traditional book?
Right. Okay. Thank you for asking. I was like, you just gave away my secret. So as of 2 days ago, I had the first 3, what they call chapters, up on Wattpad of my new YA novel. It's Zodiac Rising. It is tied into my Signs of the Zodiac series. It is Joanna Archer's daughter, and it has been incredible to see how she faces being a superhero versus the way her mother faced it. She's also reluctant, but for entirely different reasons. And it was, shall I say, awesome to come at it from a teen girl's perspective, because the issues facing these teen girls are not all that different than what we face as women. So I do want to speak to the why, because I don't want to hear from other writers, oh my God, you're giving away your work for free, and what are you doing? Because currency comes in many forms, and money is just one of those forms. And as I said, I just took a lengthy amount of time off, and had a massive perspective shift. And I, as a writer, as a person, have a vision of the world as the way I want it to be, and what I want to build in this world, and what I want to create. And I dream of a world where women and girls wake up feeling empowered to leave the house, and feeling safe coming back home to the, just coming back home. And so I intend to build good things, for this world, and not just for myself, but for the girls I love, and for readers as well. And so therefore, I've chosen to serialize this novel for teens on a platform that is predominantly, populated by teens. And Wattpad is amazing. I've been watching them for a while, and I like the people running the company. I like their vision. I like what they're doing for young writers. I like the connection, and connection is also currency. And so I want to be transparent. I want to show young writers, if I can do this, you can do this. This is how you work through a draft. I plan on showing up, 4 times a week for sure, if not daily, to answer questions, to talk about writing, to talk about life, to talk about being a girl and a woman in this world. And I mean, if they're open to that. And also, talk to my longtime Zodiac, readers who've been asking for more Zodiac. I mean, I would love for them to come over to Wattpad and let's chat, and let's, connect and communicate. This is my gift to you. And this is my gift to, I can only give so much money. I donate to Planned Parenthood. There's the ACLU. There's so many things right now with like tornadoes and earthquakes and all these things, all these places where you can give money. And I, like everybody, I only have so much money to give. But what greater gift can I give than my art and then my work? I've drafted this over the past year. It's actually what got me writing again, because it was so fun. The teen voice was fun. Being back in the Zodiac world was fun. And it just brought me back to life as a writer. So I want to share that. I'll make money with, my next proposal, my next book, and that's fine. But this is a different purpose, because, voices matter, and stories matter, and young voices matter. And I've just seen too many attacks on young women, or women and young women, in the press and politically lately, that I just feel like if you can control your own narrative, you can be the hero of your own life. And so I'm going to put myself out there, be present, be approachable, just be there. And hopefully, people will love the story and come along with me. But that's why I'm doing it. So I'm not going to, explain, I'm not going to explain myself all over the internet why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm just doing it. So if you would like to join me on this journey, then please do. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to take like 4 to 6 months to get, through this. And so, as I'm posting regularly. So I'm super excited about it. So it's fun.
Yeah. Oh, we have a young viewer. Her name is I. So her name is I, just I. And I asks, when you were my age, 15, who were some of your favorite female characters?
Oh my goodness. I was reading Madeleine L'Engle. I was reading Judy Blume. I read pretty much voraciously anything I get my hands on. I did read a lot of fantasy, but not high fantasy, because like the Tolkien and it didn't, it didn't do it for me because it was boy, dragon, sword, and slay it and win and go on. And like, if there was a female character in there, like she was like an angel, she had a halo or something, I don't know, she needed to be saved. And I was like, I cannot relate to any of that. So high fantasy has never really been my bag, but you have so much more out there. Like I tell my kids, God, if I only had Harry Potter when I was a kid. You're telling that story about the author who scared himself. He was writing and he heard the bang. I was reading, when I first read Harry Potter, I got to this part where they actually said Voldemort's name and my whole house shook. And I got so scared, and I realized we were having like an earthquake. And so, we get tremors out here in the desert. And so, but I was like, oh my God, it's Voldemort. So I'll just freak myself out with other people's stories too. Yeah, I wish I had that. I wish I'd had Hunger Games. I wish I had Lee Bardugo. I wish I had all of it. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and Lee's really cool. She was on Read for Pixels too, and she was talking all about her characters. She's awesome.
Yeah,
like you.
She's her writing. If you guys haven't read her writing, her books are perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so next question from us. Geek culture in general, including science fiction and fantasy, has had its share of critics saying that it's still too male-dominated despite a rising number of prominent, well-respected, and well-known female authors like yourself. So what do you think needs to be done to make geek culture as a whole, whether it's comics or gaming or books or conventions, more welcoming for women and girls?
Well, it's a microcosm of society, isn't it? So, but we do have some awesome, I think having some male allies out there. We have some awesome male allies who speak out regularly. Christopher Golden, Chuck Wendig, Richard Kadrey. Those are people, the men that I follow. Kevin Anderson, like people who are so good and kind and inclusive. And that's what you need. It's so funny because the men who have the most power and the largest voices, like Joe Hill, Stephen King, I mean, they're all staunch feminists. It's the guys who, can't kind of get there on their own, who have to marginalize the women. That's in real life, and that's in, in these fantasy realms. So.
I'll tell you something very interesting that Joe told us during his hangout, that when he was growing up, his mom and dad, and when they were having dinner, a family dinner when he was growing up, they would talk about all of this. They would talk because I think Stephen King wrote Rose Madder, right? And it was about domestic violence. And his mom and dad actually over dinner they actually had a conversation about this. So it is interesting. I mean now we have Joe Hill, who stands up and speaks up very loudly about he came on and he talked about violence against women, he talked about inequality, and it does count. So that actually leads to my next question, which is, parents are usually the most influential role models in a person's life because they're the first people you see usually. And when you're born, you're the first people who talk to you normally, and they're the people who see you through age 0 to bye-bye, go to college at 18 and even beyond. And as a mom of 3 kids, did I get it right? You're 3 kids, yeah?
Yeah.
Mom of 3 kids, yeah. You're a mom of 3 kids. So what do you think parents can do to help prevent violence against women and girls in the future generations, and to get boys involved in helping to do so?
Well, I mean, I think you hit it square in the head, and having overt conversations with not just your daughters, but your sons. Because I don't think, it's one thing that doesn't get spoken about enough is how hard it is to be a boy, being raised in a society where you're told you need to be, super aggressive and super, alpha, and or boys get pigeonholed just as much as women do, and raising better boys, but like, or boys being told, don't cry, it's girly, it's you have to be tough, you have to be, and then they just shut that side of them off. And the young boys that I've seen, when you catch a boy when he's in his, all the way up to 10, or even, through his 20, they're so kind and they're so sweet. And at some point, it gets turned off. shut down and almost soldered and cauterized for a lot of these boys and men. So it's sad because, you know, the greatest gift, you know, in my life has been, you know, or one of the greatest gifts is having men who you know, you can connect with. Again, it's back to connection.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's head round to the next batch of fan questions before we wrap up. So let's see. Shirley Landberg. Hi, Shirley. Shirley's watching right now. She asks, other than urban fantasy and thrillers, are there any other genres you're interested in exploring?
Okay, so yeah, obviously the YA, and then the proposal that I'm writing right now is for actually a series thriller. So I think that's where I'm living right now. I think between the YA and the thriller, that's enough for me right now. No, there's nothing else.
Okay, next question. Corey Willowtree asks, will the Zodiac series be made into graphic novels? Maybe they are already and somehow I missed it. They would be amazing.
Yeah, you didn't miss it. I know I had talked about it in the past, but you know, since the series is shut down, I mean, that's something that has to be growing and building for a, you know, comic book company and a publisher to come and, you know, say we want this. And so they need to see that the audience there, and the audience isn't there when the series is, you know, over and done and shelved. So I'm gonna say no right now, but you know, never know.
Okay. Let's see. The next one. Philip Holt asks, what prompted you to use a tulpa as the vessel for the Nemesis in the Zodiac series?
Oh, it was just cool. I saw it and I was like, that's brilliant and crazy, and I've never heard of that before. And I was curious. I wanted to explore it some more, and so I did. And it really, it I was gonna say it took on a life of its own. It did. Oh my gosh, yeah, it was so fun to write the tulpa.
Okay. Heidi Richardson asks, how do you feel about beloved novels being recreated as movies?
Well, it's okay because, you know, the movie's the movie, the novel is the novel, the two, you know, never shall meet. So the twain never shall meet. So sometimes they do a good job, sometimes they don't, but at least you can still go to your shelf and, you know, pick up the real deal. The book's always better than the movie. It just is.
Okay. Kelly Leah asks, when are you coming back to SIWC?
That's the Surrey International Writers Conference, and I would argue that it's the best writers conference in, you know, North America. It's in Canada. It's run by amazing people. It is super intimate and small, and you know, you have access to all of the authors, and it's wonderful. And so I would love to go back, but I don't know when. You know, obviously I've taken some time off, and so there's no reason for me to go up there at that point. But as I'm concentrating on, you know, my real life, but someday I would love to return.
Yeah. John Benedict, who's watching right now, asks, he says, when are you coming to Las Vegas? BN Coffee and Cookies?
I'm in Las Vegas. Well, I would have to have another release for Barnes & Noble to allow me to I'll do reader meetups when I have a book released here, because it's, you know, my family, my friends and people, and we'll just get together and we'll have, you know, cupcakes or something and chit chat before the signing. And so I love to do that. But yeah, I haven't had anything out for a while, and now Zodiac Rising is you know, being released online, so it probably won't be for a bit. But thank you for asking.
Rainy Rodriguez says, this is the final fan question, I think, before we move into the wrap up. How do you approach people while doing your research without them thinking you were completely insane for asking the questions you were asking?
Oh, I don't care if they think I'm insane. It's okay. I think I answered that before. Was I go for it, and, you know, I just say, oh, it's for a book, and yeah, I don't care. I mean, I do a lot of insane things, so it's okay. It's okay if they think I'm crazy.
Insane things are good sometimes.
Yeah, why not?
What was that quote from the character in we bought a zoo or something like that, and he said it just takes 20 seconds of insane courage to get something done. basically. Just
Yeah.
20 seconds, and you'll get it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, so last question from us. You have been, it's a bit of a Captain Obvious question, but it's good to round up with this. You have been so incredibly supportive of our Read for Pixels campaign and our anti-violence against women work as a whole. You can see that on your posts on Facebook, including threatening people with pumpkin spice. If they don't turn out pumpkin.
So many people I have to like nail with pumpkin spice now too.
That's like there was like 87 people who liked that comment of yours, that pumpkin spice thread. That was cute.
It says that they don't fear me at all.
Anyway, the question is, or the questions are, why do you support, so I guess this is just like a wrap up. Why do you support the cause to end violence against women? And in your opinion, how can authors like yourself best support efforts to kick off social change to end violence against women?
Okay, so why? It's right here. I'm a chick. It's not going to change. I'm going to be a chick for a really long time, and I would like to go through the world in a safe way. I don't know about anybody else, but could we like just make this happen? Because, you know, I'm tired of the alternative. It's gross. It's dirty. It's unacceptable. And so, so that's the why. And the how. So I think a number of things. You can't approach it head on. You know, you're not going to change anybody's mind by attacking them and telling them what terrible people they are, because nobody really likes to hear that. I think we all need to tell our stories. It's why I'm going on Wattpad. I want to hear stories as well as tell them. And so we all need to talk about it as we're doing now, and take it, you know, talk about it overtly. You know, this is not something that should be hidden. It's a problem and we should address it. And then listen as well. Listen to people and be there for them and connect. And then finally, I think start locally. Like if there's anything you could do something small every day, you know, like if there's somebody who looks different than you, if there's somebody who is of a different race or religion, say hi, go up, engage, connect, you know, don't be the other. And don't allow them to be the other, because it's not true. The stories sometimes that you've been told are not true. So create your own story. Control the narrative. You know, start locally. Contribute where you can. If it can't be money, then maybe it can be your art, like me. You know, do what you can. I firmly believe we can make the better place together, and that's why I support you guys so much. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this and allowing me to connect and talk to my readers and hopefully some new people. And hi, and come friend me, and let's be friends.
Okay, so now we're gonna do the wrap up. I'm gonna put myself back on screen. Hi everybody! If you just heard my disembodied voice, if you only joined in the middle of the Hangout. Now I'm just gonna give you some details about how to go get Vicki's remaining treat. She actually has a really cool treat. So, as mentioned earlier, Vicki has very kindly donated a couple of awesome treats to the stash of author goodies we have up as perks for donors at the Read for Pixels fundraising page. So she donated a 30-minute one-to-one Skype chat. That's already gone. That's totally gone. It's Kara McLeod got it like nearly immediately. We've stuck it up, and like 6 hours later, Kara just coolly swayed in and got it. Now, what's left is a really cool treat. It's a chance to become a minor character in one of Vicki's next books. I say books because Vicki actually has 2 works in progress right now, and you can pick the one that you prefer. And if you aren't in the mood for that, or you need, or you have a smaller donation you want to give, there are plenty of other goodies available from authors including Charles DeLint, Adrian Tchaikovsky, Jean-Pierre Valentine, Isaac Marion, Paul Tremblay, yes, he who scared himself while he was writing. Vicki's laughing right now. While he was writing his latest horror book, they're going to be up, and you can check. We're releasing goodies in weekly batches. So check every Friday throughout September for new goodies going up. And also make sure that you check whether the goodies are available for US donors only or for donors worldwide. We have a good mix of them. So before you make your donation and select your goodie of choice, make sure to check that you're in the right geographical area. So I'm gonna screen share, let's see, a really cool little slide. Okay, Vicki, can you see it?
Yes, it can.
Okay, so it's a cool little slide, and it says donate. You can donate for goodies via our Rally Up fundraising page. It's go to is.gd/R4P Rally Up 2017, and this is case sensitive, so make sure you get all the characters in the right cases, and you can find out more about Read for Pixels at is.gd/Read for Pixels. And I'm sure if you don't catch it now, Vicki will share it again on her page. So if you're not following Vicki on Facebook, please follow it now. Just type in Vicki Pettersson, and there she is. There's only one Vicki Pettersson. And you can, if you want to find out more about violence against women and what you can do about it, I'm just going to stop the site, right? Go visit the Pixel Project's website at www.thepixelproject.net. Now, on the website, we have primers. We have, if you're not sure what violence against women is, we have a whole bunch of reader-friendly introductions, short ones to get you up to date. If you have friends or family members who are suffering from the aftermath of rape or sexual assault, or who are currently experiencing domestic violence, or any other type of violence against women, we do have checklists there that you can download. We have primers there for you so that you know what are the first steps you can take to help your friend or your family member. And once again, to find out more about the Celebrity Male Role Model Pixel Reveal campaign, in which we are showcasing some very famous men as male role models, please visit reveal.thepixelproject.net to learn more about it. And please do donate generously to help us reveal pixels and raise the $1 million for the cause, because we're going to use it for a whole bunch of really, really cool stuff to get the communities worldwide together to help stop violence against women. And I'm just going to put Vicki back on screen so we can both say bye. So thank you, guys. Vicki, do you have any last announcements to make? Anything else before we go?
No, just please come engage with me, and please come on Wattpad and let's play. And I wrote something just for you. It's a gift, no charge. It's just yeah, let's connect. Let's go ahead and make the world a better place together.
All right, so everybody have a good day and good night wherever you are in the world. We thank you so much for spending the last hour and a half with us. Have a good weekend and check out all the goodies. Bye.